Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the April 20th regular meeting of the Inland Wetlands Agency. Lisa, please call the roll.
Ranjit Bahav. Daniel Bedeker.
Here.
Jim Connors. Matthew Connors. Heather Donaldson Gladue. Dave DeFlameri. Steve Munson.
Here.
Jerry Panico.
Here.
Lisa Tryon. Here. Brendan Magnan.
Here. Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa Tryon. I lost my screen, so I'm a little.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It happened to me too. It went full screen. But yes, you did call on Lisa, and we do have a quorum. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
At this time, I'd like to remind everyone that's participating in the meeting, as well as those that may be watching the recording or live on YouTube. In accordance with Freedom of Information Act and Governor Lamont's executive orders, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the City of Milford website. During the meeting, if anyone from the commission or members of the public or members of the applicants wish to be acknowledged, please use the raise your hand feature in the Zoom or signal. If I see you, you can do that. And I will acknowledge you. Please state your name for the record and address, sorry, your name and address for the record. At this time, I'd like to invite everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mary Ruth, if you could show the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda, we have public comments limited to topics not otherwise on the agenda. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to the commission on topics not otherwise on the agenda? Calling once, calling twice. Anyone interested in speaking to the commission? And third round, moving on to item D, old business. Mary Rose, can you introduce this matter?
Yes. This is IWA 22-0021-883 North Street. It is a proposal for renovation and reconstruction of an existing building for a deli with work within 150 feet of wetlands in the Wetland River watershed. Property owner and his contractors started work on the building without city permits and are now working to get permitted to construct on the site. A portion of the building was removed and is now replaced. The gravel parking area and grassed area adjacent to the wetland are stable. The applicant's consultants are working with the health department on abandonment options for the on-site septic and the status of the existing well. The city engineer received plans for review after our last meeting on 4/7 and responded to the applicant on 4/14. Doug Wright of Fuller Engineering submitted revised plans this afternoon in response to those comments. And then he submitted an email later this afternoon stating he understood it's unlikely that the plan reviews for what he had submitted today would be complete for this evening's meeting. And asked that we hold comment or hold discussion until the May 4th meeting. But I do see Mr. Wright is here this evening. I do have a meeting with him and the city engineer scheduled for next Tuesday afternoon for the three of us to review those plans. Those updated plans were put on the meeting link this afternoon after they were received. I don't know if the commission members had time to review them. I would recommend no action this evening, but since Mr. Wright is here, I don't know if he has anything to say.
Mr. Wright, if you wanted to add anything to the record, you could do so at this time.
Good evening. My name is Douglas Rich, landscape architect with Fuller Engineering and Land Surveying Office in Bridgeport, Connecticut. No, Mary Rose is correct. We felt this probably wasn't the best use of the commission's time this evening to go through point by point discussion of what revisions we made to the set. Just suffice to say that we believe we've done a comprehensive revision to the set in accordance with the city engineer's comments, Mary Rose's comments, and just look forward to meeting with you in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rich. Appreciate your efforts here. We'll endeavor to review the matter and the revised plans before the next meeting.
Thank you.
Moving on to next agenda item D2. Mary Rose, could you introduce this one?
Item T2 is IWA 220029, 238 Zion Hill Road. And it is a, excuse me, a 3-lot subdivision with one existing house with work within 150 feet of a wetland in the Wetland River watershed. There's no wetland on the property. There is a wetland on the opposite side of Southworth Street from the site. Closest work proposed for the site is the required widening of Southworth Street to city standards. That work is approximately 85 feet from the wetland. This agency did approve a 2-lot subdivision for this property back in 2012. That was never built. Attorney Tom Lynch and Ron Wasmer of Connecticut Civil Group are here. I'm sorry, just Mr. Wasmer is here representing this evening. They did present this proposal at our last meeting.
Thank you, Mary Rose. At this time, are there any additional questions for the applicant or Mr. Wasmer? Is there anything additional you want to put on the record before we open it up for questions?
Good evening, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, land surveyor with an office 158 Research Drive. I don't have anything additional to add to our presentation from last meeting, but I'm here if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wasmer. Questions from the agency? We've had time to consider this. We did review it during the initial presentation. We had pretty substantive discussion then. Any further questions? Any
Chairman?
thoughts? Yes, Mr. Munson.
I think they answered any questions we had pretty well at the last meeting.
I would agree. Do we have a motion? You want to consider a motion on this matter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. Mr. Chairman, after duly considering all relevant factors, I move to approve application IWA 220029, 238 Zion Hill Road, based on the plans entitled Re-Subdivision 238 Zion Hill Road, Milford, Connecticut, by Connecticut Civil Group, 9 sheets dated 12/9/21, revised 2/28/22. The information in the file presented this evening for the following reasons. This action will not have an impact or effect on the physical characteristics of the adjacent wetlands and watercourses, with conditions including the permittee must submit a construction plan prior to taking out the permit. Wetland notification be placed on the as-built and in the property deed to give notification to property owners that permits are required for any MIWA work on the site. Documentation to be submitted to the MIWA office prior to bond release. Compliance with the city engineer's requirements. A bond of $8,100 must be posted with the MIWA for sedimentation and erosion controls, border plantings, wetland boundary markers, and an as-built showing finished 2-foot contours and locating all site structures. In construction or maintaining any structural facility or conducting any activity authorized herein, the permittee shall employ best management practices to control stormwater discharges, prevent erosion and sedimentation, and to otherwise prevent pollution of wetlands and watercourses. Best management practices include, but are not limited to, practices identified in the Connecticut guidelines for the soil erosion and sedimentation control as revised. 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual, Department of Transportation's Connecticut DOT Drainage Manual as revised in the Department of Transportation Standard Specifications as revised. The permittee must submit a certification by the project engineer that the completed project meets the design intent of the approval prior to bonds being released. The permit is issued 4/20/22, expires 4/20/27, unless otherwise provided by statute. That is my motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Munson. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Okay.
Second from Mr. Bedecker. Do we have any discussion on the motion? I would just say I'm in favor of this motion as the plan is well designed and conceived and for all the reasons outlined in the draft motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstains?
I'm gonna abstain, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't here last meeting.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wassmer. Moving on to item D3. Mary Rose, could you introduce this one?
This is violation IWC 22-00100 New Haven Avenue. It is, sorry, hold on a second. It was issued 3/28/22 for work in and adjacent to wetlands associated with Turtle Creek in the Indian River watershed without a permit. At our last meeting, we had not heard from the property owner, and the agency upheld and modified the violation to change the dates for compliance and push those dates forward. This afternoon, I spoke with attorney Kevin Kersaden, who has been retained by Anthony Monaco, the property owner. He apologized. He was unable to be here this evening. He wasn't, didn't know he was going to be on tonight. Mr. Monaco has retained him and given him authorization to hire consultants to flag the wetlands and survey the property. He had made some calls today, but did not have concrete dates as of yet. He's waiting on a call back for those and asked if we would push the dates forward 1 month to give his clients time to comply. I checked the site this week. The wood chips that were blown back onto the site when I was there with the tree service have added to the stability. They hadn't cleared the lot. They had just cut down and wood chipped. There doesn't seem to be any significant erosion. So I would recommend modifying the violation to move the deadlines forward, including soil erosion control, because as we move through the spring, the rains are going to take a toll on the chips that are there. But to give them time to hire the consultants for we had wanted a soil scientist to delineate the wetlands and do a mitigation plan and a surveyor to survey the site.
Great, thanks for the update, Mary Rose. It's encouraging to know that the owner has retained counsel to make sure that, and will be hiring the consultants as you outlined. So this evening we can ask questions on this matter. Questions, we can uphold the violation, release it, or modify it. What is the pleasure of the agency?
Mr. Chairman, I think we should just give them the extension and wait to the next meeting or possibly past that even.
Yeah, I support Mary Rose's recommendation. We have a motion to align with that then, Mr. Munson?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move that cease and desist order IWC 22-0010 New Haven Avenue be upheld and modified to require the property owner to complete installation or submit the information required in the order by the following dates: property installation, soil erosion and sedimentation controls by May 2nd, 2022. Hire a certified soil scientist or professional wetland scientist by May 17th, 2022. Submit the required A2 survey with T2 accuracy by May 31st, 2022. Submit a detailed mitigation and planning plan for review and approval by May 31st, 2022. That is my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Munson. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Bedecker. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstains? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up, Mary Rose, can you introduce the next item?
Next item is violation IWC 22-0011 918 Relish Farms Road. This was issued on 3/30 for work in and adjacent to Turkey Hill Brook without a permit. At our meeting on April 6th, the agency upheld and modified the violation after speaking with property owner Raymond Testo of Freedom Vines and Ron Wassmer of Connecticut Civil Group. The violation was modified to require that the properly install soil erosion and sedimentation controls by 4/14. I walked the site this morning with Mr. Wassmer and Jake Del Jedice of Connecticut Civil Group. The former driveway area for 918 Relish Farms Road that was dirt when I was there last has been enlarged. There's no longer dirt, it's got processed stone on it. The grass area adjacent to the stream is now part of the parking area driveway. There's about a 1.5 to 2 foot strip of disturbed soil between the hay bales and that new parking area. The hay bales were installed on their sides. They're not tightly packed. Mr. Wassmer suggested, and I agree, that some wood chips in front of them will help the real erosion that's happening between the hay bales. The rocks that were dumped in the stream and noted in my report on 3/21 have been removed. And Mr. Wassmer is going to speak to Mr. Testo about getting the wood chips on. The second item they had was to hire a soil scientist or professional wetland scientist by 4/14. Mr. Wassmer told me Mr. Testo had hired Bill Kenny of William Kenny Associates. We walked the site today and viewed the wetland flagging along Turkey Hill Brook and Herbert Brook, which runs to the west of the property. So Mr. Testo needs to contract with Mr. Kenny for the mitigation and planting plan. And on site today, speaking with Mr. Wassmer, they're hoping to do field work in the next few days and are still on track to be able to submit the plan as requested by May 13th. And again, the last item is the mitigation and planting plan, also due on the 13th of May. Mr. Wassmer's here this evening if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Mr. Wassmer, is there anything else you'd like to add to the record?
Good evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, land surveyor with an office at 158 Research Drive. I concur with all of Mary Rose's observations. I was with her on site today. So we've done a fair amount of surveying, but we haven't located the wetland flags, which were placed within the past few days. We will be doing that within the next week or so to submit that for the meeting of, we'll submit it by the deadline of the 13th of May. I did speak with Mr. Testo earlier this morning to let him know we were going to be on site. He said, fine, no problem with that, but he was out of state at the moment, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him this afternoon about getting some wood chips in front of the hay bales there, and I will do my best to do that tomorrow. Other than that, I have nothing else to add.
Thank you, Mr. Wassmer. Appreciate that. So Mary Rose, is it your recommendation that we uphold the violation as is or modify the violation in any way?
I don't believe there's any need to modify the violation in any way. They're working towards compliance. They've met the first two dates, items 1 and 2 as requested, and they're working towards items 3 and 4.
Okay, thanks for confirming that. So therefore, we don't need, we can take no action on this.
We can take no action this evening.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item, please, if you could introduce
Thank you.
that.
I'll see you guys next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hold on a second. I'm just gonna. This is item E1. It's IWA 220035 589 Bridgeport Avenue. It's an application by CDP Milford LLC for redevelopment of the Kmart site with work in and within 100 feet of a wetland in the Housatonic River watershed. Applicant is proposing to remove and replace the Kmart building with residential units and to renovate the exterior of the remaining retail areas of the site. They're proposing to do work on approximately 1.62 acres of the upland review area with temporary disturbances of 330 square feet during construction. Those areas that are disturbed have invasive plants on them that would be removed, and they will be replanted and stabilized with native species after construction for a net enhancement creation, net loss of 0. Application was received yesterday and referred to the city engineer for review and presented this evening. We have John Nuff of Hurwitz, Sagrin, Schlossberg and Nuff, John Smith, and Sagan Simcoe of BL Companies. John, would your team like to share the screen, or would you like me to share?
I think Sagan's going to share in a moment. I'm just going to do a very quick introduction, Mary Rose, and I want to turn it over to the people who know what they're talking about, meaning John and Sagan. But for the record, my name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney in the office at 147 Broad Street in Milford, and we're really happy to be here tonight. Our client is CDP Milford LLC. They are the contract purchaser of the property 589 Bridgeport Avenue. We all know it as the really sort of forlorn Kmart site. And so we're really, really happy to be having the opportunity to redevelop the property. The property is currently owned by the Casey family. Many of you may know that John Casey, that was a longtime city engineer, was one of the family members. Our firm actually represented the Caseys for a long time. And so we're certainly aware of the very significant hurdles to redeveloping the site. And as I said, we're very, very excited that this day has finally come that we can actually bring forward an application to redevelop it. You should know that we have already been before planning and zoning in the context of regulation amendments. And that regulation amendment allows the addition of a multifamily community in the rear of the site while maintaining the commercial corridor along Bridgeport Avenue. It also mandates that we make dramatic improvements to the facades of the existing of the commercial buildings that will remain. We're going to replace the sort of small retail building right up by Bridgeport Avenue. A good part of the other existing commercial space will be demolished, including Kmart. The Dollar Tree and Ocean State job lot will remain, but again, will be dramatically enhanced in terms of its treatment. We're going to be adding landscaping throughout the site, reducing the impervious coverage, and most importantly, from your perspective, bringing what is an archaic stormwater treatment, and I don't even call it stormwater treatment, a stormwater conveyance system into the 21st century. So with that, I'm going to turn over to John Schmitz, who's a professional engineer with BL Companies, who will walk you through the site plan. And then we're going to hear from Sagan Simcoe, who's a certified soil scientist, and he's the one who submitted or drafted the wetland and watercourse evaluation. We understand this is only a receipt, so we're going to keep it brief, and we look forward to back before you. Ready?
Thank you, Mr. Nuff.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is John Schmitz. I'm a senior engineer with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway in Meriden, Connecticut. Mary Rose, can I share a screen? I'd be able to.
You should be able to.
Okay.
Try that.
Okay. Let's see. Let's try. Oh, it's not letting me, it's not letting me share.
All right, try that now.
Okay, there we go. You should see on your screens an aerial view of the site. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
So I'll just walk you through briefly the existing site and then the proposed site. Again, Liberty Rock Shopping Center, bounded to the north by Bridgeport Avenue, Route 1. The site is 589 Bridgeport Avenue. It's approximately 20.4 acres in total size. It's also bounded by Lansdale Avenue on the western side. You see Law High School just the other side of Lansdale. The site is comprised of, it includes Walgreens as well as Taco Bell. We have a signalized access drive at Route 1 by the liquor store. Again, Ocean State Job Lot, and then the large black box you see here is the existing Kmart, former Kmart site. Obviously, there's a sea of bituminous blacktop throughout the site, all around. We do have landscaping around the perimeter of the site, not much to the interior. There's a large wetland area to the south of the site. We have approximately 1.8 acres of wetlands on the site, and Sagan will talk about that in a little bit. Today, the stormwater on site is collected in a stormwater collection system, and all of the stormwater is discharged to Beaver Brook via an easement off behind Jonathan Law. The pavement behind Kmart is curbed. There's some catch basins back there, so all the stormwater that's collected in the rear of Kmart ends up in our collection system and discharged again to Beaver Brook. So we have no direct discharges into the existing wetlands. And I'm going to share with you the proposed site plan. So you see here is an exhibit of the proposed site plan. What we propose to do is divide the site up into two separate lots. The northerly lot bordering on the.
Excuse me, John.
We don't see what you're displaying. We still see the map.
Okay, hang on a sec. There we go. Okay, so this is an exhibit of the existing site plan, or rather the proposed site plan. It's rendered in color just to give you an idea of what some of the proposed uses will be. So again, Walgreens and Taco Bell will remain untouched. The rest of the commercial will be slightly modified. We'll be removing a good portion of the existing commercial property as well as the Kmart building and replacing that with residential property. The site will be split into two separate lots. The commercial lot will be approximately 7.9 acres in size. The residential will be 12.5 acres in size. With regards to parking, we'll have about 417 spaces on the commercial side. I'm sorry, on the residential side, which will service 136 units. We have 7 buildings. We have a community building in the middle with a pool, some amenity space there, and the commercial site again to the front of the development on the north side. Access will remain the same. We'll still have signalized access to Route 1 as well as another access point to Lansdale just south of Walgreens. You can see here to the south where the wetlands are located. We'll be removing the existing Kmart building as well as the pavement that's there today, right up to the fence line, and maintaining the existing wetlands. We do anticipate some minor temporary impacts to wetlands for construction purposes where these two buildings are located here and the other building on this side. Just during construction, we feel we might need a little bit of room to get construction vehicles around the foundation. So we're anticipating about 330 square feet of temporary impacts. Overall, we'll be increasing green space on site by 88,000 square feet. So as you could tell by looking at the picture here, there's a lot more green space than what's currently out there today. So again, over an acre of new green space will be applied to the site on both the commercial side and the residential. With regards to stormwater, we're maintaining the existing stormwater paths. So meaning that the majority of the stormwater will also be collected into a new system and will be discharged to the west at Beaver Brook. In addition, we'll be treating stormwater quality, which is not happening today. Today, the collection system simply conveys the stormwater as is into the brook. We will be taking the stormwater, we'll be running it through hydrodynamic separators that will be able to achieve 80% total suspended solid removal. And we'll also be infiltrating up to 50% of the first inch of runoff and keeping that water on site. In addition, because of the increase in green space, we'll have a net resulting reduction in total volume of runoff that leaves the site. Again, total area of disturbance in the upland buffer area is approximately 1.6 acres. And I would also note that because we're removing the Kmart and the pavement back there, we're also going to increase green space in the buffer area by 17,500 square feet. So again, a net increase in green space in the buffer by 17,500 square feet. We've designed the stormwater system to be in compliance with the Stormwater Quality Manual and the DEP Drainage Manual. And erosion controls have been designed in accordance with 2004 Connecticut Guidelines for Soil Erosion Sediment Control. It's kind of a brief overview of the site. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop share and allow Sagan to give you a better description of some of the wetlands that he flagged. And let me just add one more thing. The wetlands that you see here on the south end, they drain out via a minor water course into Milford Point Road. So there's a stormwater collection system there. So any water that's associated with the wetlands, when it ponds, when it drains, it heads toward Milford Point Road and is separate from the rest of the development. All right. Sagan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thanks, John. I can try to share screen here. Not sure if I could, let's see here. Try this. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So yeah, as mentioned, this is the wetland area. The overall size is about 1.85 acres. The main functions and values of this wetland are groundwater recharge and discharge primarily. It also serves sediment and nutrient retention function. And to a lesser extent, there is some wildlife habitat value for this area, but it's kind of in the middle of developed areas, so there's not really a high quality wetland for wildlife habitat. As mentioned, we're only doing 3 small areas of temporary impacts to the wetland. It's going to be just right along the edge here. There is a chain link fence in this area, and basically right along here, there's going to be three separate little areas of impacts. And immediately following the completion of the project, restoration will be done by ensuring that all non-native species and all invasive species are removed, and also planting native herbaceous and shrub species to make sure that we are trying to keep all the non-natives out and to increase the overall quality of the wetland by doing that. And in addition, we're creating what we're calling a no-mow zone, basically a buffer between all the new construction and the wetland area. We're proposing to plant some native shrubs, especially like coastal sweet pepper bush, I think would be a good example, or something similar. We can basically have a nice hedgerow of that and other wetland species, try to keep a buffer between the new area, new construction, and the wetland to keep people and pets and so forth out of the wetland, and in order to keep the wetland quality as high as possible without people wanting to go in there and trample plants down or help keep any litter and so forth out of the wetland. So that's pretty much the synopsis of the area. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Simcoe. I'm sure we have a few questions. Have you guys concluded your initial presentation?
We have, Mr. Chairman, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Nuff. Okay, I'll open it up for initial questions from the agency. Who wants to be first? Ms. Tryon?
Okay, I think it looks very exciting to change all of that asphalt into more green space. I'm just curious, is there any thought of adding some educational signage for the residents so that they do understand what's been done and why it's been done and why they, shouldn't trample it, like the gentleman mentioned, something to preserve the educational message as well?
I think that's a good idea. We would be certainly happy to discuss that with our client. Can't see any objection to that.
Yeah, we could also add, names to any plantings that we do, especially like in the no-mow zone and along the border of the wetland. Like you see at certain city parks, they have name tags for the species on trees and shrubs. I think that wouldn't hurt at all as far as education.
I think that would be great, a great educational opportunity, especially because it looks like a lot of families are going to be living there. So it would be great.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment, and I would follow up that and just add, is there, as part of your plans, do you envision any kind of fence that borders the wetland in adjacent to the proposed buildings? Have you contemplated that yet?
I don't think we, Schmitty, I'm sorry, I don't know, but I don't think that we are.
Currently, we're not proposing a fence at this time. We were trying to look at more of a vegetative buffer.
Yeah, I think especially with like the sweet coastal pepper bush and shrubs of that nature, once they're established and they're kind of growing together, it's not easy to walk through that stuff. And I mean, it's possible, but it would be very discouraging for people to actually, make their way into the wetland through a nice thick hedgerow of pepper bush.
Do you envision that the buffer will be raised, or is it just the plantings serve as the buffer?
I think the plantings would serve well.
Okay. Something to consider, we typically request signage that indicates it's a wetland along the sort of theme of what Lisa was talking about. Especially given the high density of people, we definitely want to be intentional about that.
You're referring to like boundary markers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm familiar. That's an easy, we usually put them on posts along the, every 50 feet or so. We can certainly do that.
Okay. I have a couple other questions, but I'll open it up for anybody else first. Commissioner Munson?
Yeah. What, if any, is the plan for snow removal?
So I don't have a plan showing you where the snow removal would be. We could certainly provide that. The plan for snow removal is typically placing snow in areas such that if it melts, you still get the benefit of water quality removal, right? So if there's sediment or oils that are in the snow, when it melts, it still goes through the hydrodynamic separators. It still gets caught up in the collection system, as opposed to, certainly we couldn't just plow it into the wetlands here, but that's something we wouldn't do even if we could. The idea is that we'll put snow in an area where it'll melt and get into this collection system, but happy to provide a plan showing where those areas will be located.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's important. I would just echo what Commissioner Munson said, that we absolutely expect that as part of the plan. Could you actually bring the plan back up for us?
Yeah.
And Mr. Munson, did you have anything else?
No. Commissioner Cryan brought up the signage. That was the other thing I was thinking about. That's
okay.
That was addressed.
Could you just elaborate, perhaps Mr. Simcoe, you could elaborate on what you meant by 3 areas of impact of the wetlands will be impacted during the construction? Is that laid out in the plan?
Yeah, I believe John has it marked out there in the hashed kind of the hatch areas. There's 3 of them. There's one there and one in the middle underneath the LOD, and then to the right there. Yeah. 3 very small areas. And again, in this area of the wetland where it's getting, transitioning from more hydrology to upland area, there are a lot of invasive species in there, like the Oriental bittersweet and autumn olive and so forth. So basically by disturbing those areas and then replacing them, we're going to be replacing them at a much higher quality than what they're currently, the way they currently are, with mixing the invasives with the native wetland species in there. So to me, it's one of those things where it's, yeah, we're disturbing the wetland, but it's going to end up being better than the way it started.
We also want to give credit to Mary Rose, because when she saw the plan initially, she was, we could have, told the commission that we wouldn't be doing any work within the wetlands, and certainly that could be possible. But she had indicated that, if it's going to be tight for the construction crews working back there, that would be better off showing it and just acknowledging it and then getting approved rather than trying to avoid, some sort of a violation. So we took her advice to heart, and that's the other reason why we're showing this as a disturbance.
Right. And just to add to that, John, again, John Schmitz with BL, we kept a 20-foot distance from the building face to arrive at these numbers. And what we're doing in the areas all along the wetlands, the limited disturbance, is provide a double row of silt fence. And then the 3 areas where we have this disturbance, the temporary disturbance, we would be using timber mats. So we would remove the vegetation that's there now. We would lay down timber matting on top of the soils, and so that any construction vehicles could roll over that. And we're not removing any soils when construction's finished. We would then remove the timber matting and restore the areas with plantings.
Okay, thank you. That was the elaboration I was looking for. And I presume that's on the plan.
It is. It's on the erosion control plan. There's details on the detail sheets as well.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Mr. Bedecker?
Hi, Commissioner Bedecker, Milford. I had my questions answered about the 3 areas of disturbance, but can you tell someone, one of you tell me, elaborate on the dog park, what that's going to be about, and how that's going to be constructed?
Sure. Again, John Schmitz. So the dog park would be fenced in. It's really an area for residents to walk their dogs, allow them to run within the dog park. We do propose a stone dust path in there. That's the curved areas you see. The area would be turf at this point, grass. The black line you see in here is a drain, storm drain. So we'd have a low point in the middle where we'd be able to collect some storm water that would drain into the center there. Probably some perimeter areas would drain towards the wetlands and other directions. But I could probably provide some additional details at a later date, but if you choose.
Okay, thank you.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Bedecker?
Yes, fine, thanks.
Okay. Follow-up question. In general, does the plan include any major tree removals at all? I don't believe it does based on what I saw, but is there any tree canopies that are impacted by the construction?
So, yes, let me go back to the plan. So, because the majority of the site is paved, there's no major trees being removed in or at the wetlands. Those are obviously the same. Trees that will be removed will be along the perimeter, along the eastern side at this location and the western side. So under zoning today, there's commercial property, there's commercial, how do I say it? With the Kmart, there's a buffer of trees on both sides, and those trees will be removed in order to push these residential buildings a little further closer as things expand. So there will be a number of trees that would be removed in those areas along the west and eastern side.
But not in the canopy area. No canopies will be affected in the wetland area, correct? That's what you were saying.
That's true. And then I think I just flip up one sheet. Let me see. Yeah. In fact, there are a couple of pine trees here that we're saving. You can see here where the edge of the paving is today. And between the edge of the paving today and the fence line, it's just grass. We're also saving a couple of other significant trees down at this end. There is a telephone pole line that loops around the entire site, runs around the back of Kmart. Those telephone poles, all the aerial line there would be removed as well, since all utilities would be underground. The utility company has provided for clearance around that line, so there's no canopy adjacent to that line today. But with regards to the wetlands, we'll be preserving the canopy that's there today.
So that raises another question in light of the fact that you haven't considered putting a fence in to demarcate and prevent traffic. It sounds like you have a good plan for a natural buffer once it's established, but what thought have you given to preventing residents from dumping trash, leaves being dumped in the wetlands by, carelessness?
Well, certainly when it comes to leads, I mean, there's going to be a professional group who's going to be maintaining the site. In terms of, educating the residents, I think the idea of having some signage is a good one. I mean, if the commission would prefer that some sort of low barrier fence that, would act as a physical demarcation, maybe just something, 2 feet high that would run along the edge there to create another, physical and visual boundary. In addition, particularly while the plantings grow, I'm sure we could accommodate that as well.
It's a consideration. I don't know enough about this application yet to make a strong opinion. I don't know what other members think, but I'm just trying to think about the extreme examples that we've dealt with on other applications. I mean, could there be children riding bikes in this area because it's a fun area to ride bikes? And that presents
no, it's a good point, and it's a fair point for further consideration. I think it bears some scrutiny on our part in terms of whether there's going to be, and I don't recall whether there's going to be any means of egress on the rear of those two buildings into that area. Certainly there would be windows. I don't know whether there'd be any doors specifically or sliding doors, but we can come back to you with that information and a solution to as to how to prevent the sorts of things that you just mentioned.
Thank you.
As far as the wetland itself, no one's going to want to be walking in it. It's not one of these wetlands where it's a grassy area and you can walk in it without sinking. This isn't that type of wetland. It's basically a red maple swamp area. It's not super wet, but if you walk through there, you will make a mess of whatever footwear you're wearing. And if you try to walk a dog through there, it's not going to go well for you. So people aren't going to seek out walking through this area.
That's actually very insightful and helpful.
Yes.
It's helpful a lot, very helpful for us. One additional question, and I think you answered it, but I'd just like you to expand on this, Mr. Simcoe. In general, the function and values of the wetlands as a result of this plan will be improved.
Yes, I believe so, especially obviously within the areas on the northern boundary of it. I mean, the main function and value of the wetland is surface water retention and nutrient retention. You can see all the residential parcels all on the southwest or the west, east, and south side of it. So any nutrients like fertilizer and that people put in their yards, it's going to go into this wetland. So it does have, a high value in that regard. If this wetland were to be, filled in, it would be a great detriment. It's not one of these wetlands that are super pretty to look at, but it does have a very high value as far as retaining the groundwater and any high storm event water. It can retain that and hold it. And
yeah, and I just wanted to kind of give you credit for leading off with that at the onset of your presentation, as that is the most central criteria for our deliberation. So
Sure.
I think it's really important that we consider the points that we've raised in relation to that. So any additional comments or questions during this initial presentation? Is there any additional information we want from the applicant in order to render a decision?
Aaron, I think they've answered all the questions pretty thoroughly. I think it's a great project, actually.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think it's well conceived. I'd like the opportunity to review some of the details as it's just been submitted, but and for obviously the applicant to take back the main points we've raised tonight for considerations. I don't think there's any need for sort of alternatives. I personally think it's very well conceived. I don't know, Mary Rose, if you want to add any more color. I'm sure you've been helpful in the background, as Mr. Nuff has said, leading up to this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the alternative is it's a commercial site, and they're proposing to create a retail site with a little bit more buffer adjacent to the wetlands, some removal of invasive species, and more of a dense native planting in that area. The on-site wetland will improve from that. The installation of the hydrodynamic separator and infiltration of stormwater on site, basically bringing today's era of engineering to the site, will greatly increase the quality of a wetland off-site where this pipe discharges off in the pond by Jonathan Law. So there's a net gain for two wetlands, the one on the site and the one that the stormwater from this very large parking area discharges to. If I can, Mr. Chair, if I can understand the outstanding questions of the agency, so we know what Mr. Nuff's team needs to bring back for next time, is we'd like some information on the snow removal plan, where that's going to go. Mr. Schmidt said it's all going to be in a place that's going to go through that stormwater system. That's usually how BL designs. We would just like a plan to see that. You asked about a planting plan, the signage, educational signage on the south end by that wetland. And was there any other information the agency was looking for?
Hey, Rose, I just had, I think we can agree that we'll do the boundary markers. You can do that as a condition, or I don't think we need to show exact locations.
No.
I think we're okay on the dog park, but if anyone wanted more information on the dog park, we'd be happy to provide that. And I also told the commission that we're going to get you more detail on whether there's any means of egress from the rear of those two buildings, the wetland area.
Correct.
Yeah,
Basically,
Mary, just to clarify your point, you had said it's a commercial application, but it's a combination of commercial. I think you said a retail, but it's a residential.
right. When you're asking about alternatives, right now it's a commercial site, which is an alternative. It could stay as a typical commercial site with a significant amount of pavement, or potentially turn into a residential site, which might be a little bit of a lighter use on the property adjacent to the wetland.
Right. Yeah, I believe that's all we need as updated information to render a decision.
Terrific. Well, thank you everyone for your time tonight. I guess we'll be back before you in about 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate all the comments.
Appreciate your
Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda.
Is consideration of the minutes of the previous meeting. That would have been April 6th.
Do we have a motion to accept those as presented?
So moved.
We have a second on the motion. Second from Mr. Bedecker. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have one abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you. Mary Rose, can you show the agenda?
Sure. Sorry, I'm gonna get a shot of a plan first. There you go.
Great, thank you. Staff report.
Alrighty. As typical with being spring, it's been a little bit busy. Had a lot of inquiries, a lot of complaints, a lot of flooding concerns with the storm last week and this week. Number of bond release requests, some minor reviews. We're beginning to get pools in. Question for the agency. At our last meeting, you looked at a number of pools that were sites that had come to us before, but it was pools within, say, 30 feet of the wetlands, 35 feet of the wetlands. And concerns on those sites, we want to make sure the homeowners understand that the wastewater from the pool is a wastewater considered by the state to be need to go through a sewage system or to go across their yard, not directly into a catch basin or to a wetland. So as we begin to get those applications into the office, the agency wants to see pools that are within a certain distance of the wetlands so that we can ensure that the homeowner understands. The homeowner comes in on their own. They just don't get a letter from me or see me in the office saying you can't put your water here. They actually go through a process. So would the agency like to see the applications that are 30 to 40 feet away from the wetland? And anything greater than that, the 45 to 100 feet, their runoff from that pool will certainly run across the grass areas and hit some sunshine to get rid of the chlorine before it gets into the wetland. Is that a comfortable distance for me to review in office?
What was the distance again?
Anywhere from 30 to 40 feet. We have a 100-foot review area. Most of the town, portions of the town, we have 150, which is mostly concerns with flooding. Pool that came in this morning is about 28 to 30 feet away from a conservation land trust land. It's a very tight lot. The pool is going to be very close to those wetlands. And I'm probably going to have them come to the board on May 4th. Just because of that, just to concern and underline that we're not just telling you don't do this. We really do mean if you throw your water in the wetland that it's a violation.
What are other towns use as a threshold? Do you know?
I don't. I can check on that for you.
Would 50 feet stand to reason? What do other agency members think?
Find out what other towns do, because I wouldn't be able to guess.
Alrighty. Put those calls out or some emails out tomorrow and get some answers for the next meeting. There'll probably be a couple of pools on the next agenda simply because of that proximity. But we will we'll get back to you on that. Thank you. I spoke with legal this afternoon. It's my understanding that the legislature is in process of extending Zoom meetings through July. The deadline was supposed to be April 30th. When I have confirmation of that, I will let you know. But I do ask that you check with me before the next meeting to make sure that we're on Zoom and we're not in person. When we do return in person, we will be returning to City Hall auditorium. We won't be in Parsons anymore. We'll be in City Hall so that it can be recorded and broadcast. As that's a fairly large room, the acoustics aren't that great, and it's a distance to see the plans that are on the storyboards. Going to those meetings, you may want to consider bringing your laptop or an iPad so that you can still look at them close up like you are now. And you still have the advantage of having the large plans out in the room. And you always have the option to get a paper set if you just let Taft or I know. I sent out an email last week. There's a continuation of the 50th anniversary celebration of the Wetlands and Watercourses Act. The Connecticut Planning Council will be doing several outreach and educational events. There's one on May 11th. There are lunch and learns from 12 to 1. It's a session on wetlands and climate change resiliency. And then on June 8th from 12 to 1 again, rivers and water courses, the importance of riparian zones. Both of those sessions are via Zoom. And as soon as the information is available, I'll send it out to you. For anyone who hasn't signed up, the DEP training is available once again. There's a link in the notes that were sent out today. And I think it winds up being a live link in the minutes when you receive those as well. Site status, not a lot of change. We've got everything's in process. We've had a few issues with erosion controls given the storms the last week or so. We're working through those. And no, we've got the pool at Kings Highway has taken out the permit, but other than that, no new permits have been taken out. Does anybody have any questions for me?
No questions here. Anybody else? Okay, moving on to my report. The next meeting is May 6th, May 6th, May 13th.
I think it's the 4th, but I could be wrong.
May 4th. Sorry about that. May 4th. I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening and for the great interaction during the discussion. Thanks for making quorum just by the hair of chinny chin chin. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Actually, was it seconded? Let me back up. Second on that. We need a second.
Yeah, it was Stan.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Good night. Meeting is
Good night.
adjourned.
Have a good night.
Thank you,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.